And this has been my kitchen. Today is a red letter day in cooking with SonicBlu. Today we're going to show you how to make the most complicated, the most difficult, the most expensive cuisine you can ever make in your home, and it is called Beef Wellington. It is an English beef recipe, but it is probably the most tender, the most juicy, the most delicious, delectable thing you can eat. And we're going to show you how to make it here. Now, I'm going to warn you, this video is probably going to run pretty long because there's a lot of steps to making Beef Wellington. And this is something that I've always wanted to do. And it's very complicated, but you know what? I'm a professional. I can do this. So what we need are a lot of ingredients. So first of all, we're going to just this is our tenderloin here, and we're going to show you how to unwrap, trim, and then select the Chateaubriand, which is the center cut of a tenderloin. And then we're going to make what is called a mushroom duxelle, which it consists of any kind of mushrooms that you can get your hands on. These are the button-style mushrooms, and we also have portobello mushrooms. And I'm going to start off with the portobellos. And what we're going to do is we're going to just start off by making our duxelle first, because that may still be thawing a bit, and we need to make our duxelle and then chill it before we can even start on our Beef Wellington. So let's show you how to make the duxelle first, and that way we can get this chilling. I'll show you all the necessary things that we need to make with our Beef Wellington, and we're going to start off with the duxelle. You can start with anything you want to. You can even start with your Chateaubriand if you want to. But we're going to start off with the duxelle, mainly because it takes a while to make, and it's really going to be super delicioso. Now, mushrooms in a whole are a fungus. Fungus, mainly like these, are made up of a lot of water. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to cut these down into strips, and then we're going to dice them finely. And I hope I have plenty of counter space for this. And then if we need any more, we got plenty of button mushrooms in that other bag over there, and most of that is going to be all water. So now we're going to gather our mushrooms together and kind of chop like this. Watch your phalanges, and just keep on going, keep on chopping. Once you get down to this level and you get all of your mushroom down to about that consistency and that size of chop, I'll show you what to do next. And mushrooms are very easy to chop. They don't require much skill to get them to chop so finely. Look at that. Okay. There's part of our mushroom duxelle. Okay, we're going to need some shallots, and I have a few shallots here. We're going to be grabbing about two shallots for this. So 2 relatively good sized shallots will do. There we go, just down the middle like that. And there's your shallot. You take the skin off just like a regular onion. Move aside your mushroom so that you have a nice even place to work on your shallots. And we're just going to go like this. Oops, a little bit too much of a big cut there. That's okay, we're going to chop that finely too. Oop, oop. Oh well. You're going to be cut down anyway. Might as well get it all. Okay, move this over. And just like that, just like before with the mushrooms. I want to cut them down pretty fine. And we're going to need 2 shallots for this. There. Alright, next, turn on our skillet. 6.
Another wipe down real quick.
And then, get this really hot. This is going to be made for our duxelle. And then we're just going to need a little olive oil. Enough probably to coat the bottom of the pan. Let that heat up a bit and then we can spread it easier. It doesn't take long for your olive oil to heat up. You can also use butter if you want to, but I like to add the butter last. That actually helps me see how far along I am into my duxelle. This is for just getting the shallots to turn translucent. So we're just going to take the shallots for now. But once that starts getting hot, we got to get that hot first. And then while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to reach for my spoon I'm going to be using. I'll set it right there on my caddy. Okay, and then in this pan, I'm going to be making a red wine sauce. And it consists of red wine, beef bone broth, and what else? A sprig of thyme. I'm going to put some bay leaves in there. I'm going to put some peppercorns in there. Maybe some what else have I got? Fennel seeds. I'm going to put some of them in there. Salt and pepper, a little bit of sugar, and then we are going to make what is basically traditionally in France called a beurre manier. Beurre manier is basically a reverse roux, if that makes any sense. See, when you make a roux for sauces, you generally have to make something thick and then thin it out. Well, this is in reverse, so you're going to be making something to help thicken your sauce rather than to thin it out with the ingredients. So it's kind of like a roux in reverse. Okay, I'll show you what I mean when we get to that point, but that is going to be for our beurre manier. Remember that, folks, beurre manier. Now, what is the purpose of a beurre manier? I will show you when we get to that point. First, let's take care of those shallots. Transfer all of our shallots to our skillet. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to stir this around a bit until our shallots are translucent, and it's best to have a skillet with a nice tall sides on it, so that way you can put in a lot of mushroom here, and you won't run the risk of losing some as you stir. Speaking of mushrooms, let's turn this down a little bit to 4. Let those cook a little bit. I'm going to grab some more mushrooms over here and continue working on this. So making crazy. Alright, I'm gonna get those started and then I'll check on my shallots. Okay, good. That's what we want. It smells beautiful, folks. Put those aside. And I'm going to grab a slap chop to help hurry this along. Okay, here we go. There. Okay, and that looks like about the amount we need for our duxelle. Gather up as much as we can here. And now, we're going to take this whole board over to that skillet over here. And carefully spoon our mushrooms. And it's going to be a big mess, but it cleans up. Okay, so look at all that mushroom we have in there. That's going to be a lot of duxelle. So we're going to let this cook back up to 6 again. And then while this is cooking, we're going to add 2 cloves of garlic. And then we're going to stir that in. So now you got the oil that is soaked into your shallots. And those are going to be mixed in right away as we speak. Your shallots are going to soak in all that oil, and it's going to then take all of the mushroom duxelle. As the water leaves our mushroom duxelle, it's going to cover those shallots really well and just kind of distribute all of those ingredients together. And then once the water cooks out of our duxelle, you're going to notice a very huge change. Because you're going to see that you're not going to have as much mushroom as you thought you would have had, or did have. But in case we need more, we got more where that came from. So let's let this cook for a while. I'm going to get the garlic. And we're going to need 2 cloves of garlic. I'm just going to use some of this in the jar. I could have gotten fresh garlic, but I figured, what the heck. And I need a small spoon for this. So 2 cloves worth of garlic. And this is just good enough. I mean, it's already prepared. Let's get a couple. Yeah, there we go. About 2 cloves worth. Maybe a little bit more than that because we got a lot going on. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to stir in that garlic with our mushroom. You're going to stir this constantly now. So that way you can get a good idea, a good eyesight over how much water you're starting to lose. And it's already starting to happen here, folks. It's already starting. You can already feel the moisture coming up out of this pan. This skillet, rather. I can already feel the water coming out of here. I'm going to get it to settle a bit. Okay. And then just kind of let that set for a little bit. But you kind of want to keep a good eye on your duxelle. You don't want it to burn. And keeping it up on 6, the bottom might burn out a bit if the water runs out too fast. So constantly stir this stuff. Move our beef out of the way. And the reason why I'm making the duxelle right now is because we can chill this for a couple of hours. And while we're chilling it, we can work on our puff pastry, and then we can get that chilling for a couple hours. The very last thing I want to do, folks, is the Beef Wellington. Why? Because I want to have everything ready to go and ready to show you as I go along. So I am saving the meat for last. Just to make sure I have everything else covered, because once you start on that meat, it's pretty much, you pretty much go from one step to the next step to the next step, boom, boom, boom. Look at all this butter. What are you going to do with all this butter? Well, I have some butter in here that's going to be used for making our puff pastry, and we're going to need this amount. In here, this is for my beurre manier, and this is for my crepes, and this is for adding to that sauce, or no, this is for adding to the duck salad, and this is for adding to our white wine or red wine sauce. Red wine sauce. It's a red meat, so we're going to need red wine. Now, come back over here and see. Look at the bottom of the pan. You see those water driplets everywhere? It's already starting to form. It's already happening. Our water is starting to exit our mushrooms. And our mushrooms are going to have nice, deep, dark brown color. And you can still see some bits of the shallots and the garlic mixed in there very well. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful. Now kind of spread it out evenly and let it cook out some more. So it's kind of a thing where you stir and then you let it cook, and then you stir and then you let it cook, and then you stir and you let it cook. It's kind of like a back and forth type thing. So while that's cooking out now, what do you say we make the beginning of our red wine sauce? So for red wine sauce, we have Clos de Bois red wine, and this is a Merlot variety. And then we have, I'm going to be adding some herbs to this, and I'm going to show you what herbs I'm going to be working with. Twist it and twist it until those arms come up, and then there it is. Then you just take the cork. There we go.
Sniff the cork.
Oh, that's good wine. Okay, sorry, I'm a big wine connoisseur. And we're going to need about 1.5 cups of red wine to start with. So there's 1 cup. And now for 1/2 cup. Okay, now we're also going to need bone broth. Let's get this started. Turning this up to a 4 or a 5. We'll turn it up to a 5. Okay, and to this wine we're going to add 3 cups of bone broth. There's 1. 2. Which I'm pretty sure is pretty close to the whole carton. There's just a little bit left. How much is that? Or we can do the 4th. Yeah, we can just do the full carton, and we'll just add a little bit of extra wine, and we'll just kind of add half more to that recipe. So 1 more. Let's add a 1/4 cup more of wine. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Alright, let me get and add the sugar while I'm thinking about it. Let's add 1 teaspoon of sugar. Doesn't take much sugar. Just a teaspoon of sugar makes your wine sauce taste good and sweet like it should. Make it all taste good with a teaspoon of sugar for your brown sauce to taste good. Then we're gonna stir it up. Where's my whisk? We'll take our whisk and whisk this together. Make sure that sugar dissolves very well. Now this sauce is also going to be cooked the heck out of. We're going to reduce half of the contents of this pan. Oh, we're coming out great. Still very wet though. As you can see, it's very clumpy, and we don't want this wet. We're going to add our herbs. Now this is the herbs that I'm going to show you that we're going to be adding to our wine sauce. We'll start with a few sprigs of thyme, fresh thyme. And let's just find where that opens. There it is. We're just going to take a few sprigs off the top. Okay. And we're just going to break them in half and just toss them in. Break them down, toss them in. Break it down, toss it in. Break it down, toss it in. Okay. We need a couple of these. And don't worry, these are going to be strained out later. We just need to get these to sweat all of the flavor into our sauce. Okay, perfect. A little bit more there. There we go. Perfect. Okay, that's enough time. Of course, I always like to have extra time on my hands because what if you run out of time? Okay, next. I'm going to whisk that in a bit. Get that to incorporate into our sauce. Next, add a couple of fresh bay leaves, not dry bay leaves, fresh bay leaves. I'm going to add 3 fresh bay leaves. Okay, that's enough of thyme, that's enough bay leaves, that's enough of our herbs. Alright, whisk that in. Get those flavors to incorporate into our sauce. Next, peppercorns. I'm just going to add about 10 peppercorns to our sauce. Straight whole peppercorns going in. And then we're going to add some fennel seeds. Fennel seed is a very potent herb. It's got a bite to it, and we're just going to add just enough for flavor there. We're just going to get it to flavor that fennel out of the seeds and incorporate into our sauce. So all of those ingredients now are going to settle and cook the heck out of it. This sauce is going to become a beautiful drizzle for our beef Wellington. So this won't be done until after, and I'm going to show you how to make your beurre marié and what that is going to do, and I'll explain it to you as I do it. That way it's easier for me to explain what it is that it does. And now we're going to come back to our duxelles. Oh, it's smelling great. Oh, this is smelling wonderful, folks. Now you want to kind of coat this until you do not see any droplets of water on your pan. Cook it until it is a paste. It's not quite there yet. Almost, but not quite. And since we have to cook our duxelles to great proportion, we are going to need to chill this in the refrigerator for 2 hours. We're going to need to chill our sauce when it's done for 2 hours. Next, let us work on our puff pastry. Let me get that butter. Now, puff pastry is basically like a dough that you make in your food processor here, and you have to have very cold ingredients in order for this thing to work. So, first things first, we're going to take that off. We're going to need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Flour. Okay. Okay, so let's get 2 cups of flour in here. 1 cup of flour. A little bit more than that. 2 cups of flour. And this will make plenty of puff pastry for what we need. We might need this again, so keep your flour out. Next, you're going to need all that butter. Cold, cold butter. And I'm just going to chop that up into cubes to make it easier. We're just going to drop that into our flour. Okay. Once we got that, put that back on, let it lock in place. Pulse. I'm going to turn them around. Yes, I know my duxelle is calling me. Almost there. It is almost there, folks. and it's reaching the right flavor, the right aroma, the right consistency. It's almost completely dry. Almost. And why do we need a dry duxelle? Think about this. You don't want a moist duxelle when it's being wrapped in a crepe, then a pastry, because all that moisture is just going to ruin your outer crust on the inside, from the inside out. You're already going to get plenty of juices from your meat, because your meat is going to be medium rare. So that means when you cut that open and you see red, it's a beautiful cut of meat. Okay. Now we're going to go back over here, continue to pulse. Okay, let's take a look and see. Okay, got it to pulse. Now let's go ahead and okay, now a quarter teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to eyeball that. Not that much. Half a cup of very, very cold water. Cold, cold, cold. Remember, cold makes for a nice tough pastry. It gives it a flakiness. A little bit more. Should be good. You always want to put that on a level surface to check, just to see where you are in your measurements a little bit more. And then wait for the jiggling to stop so that you can get a good amount. Oh, yep, right on the line. Okay. I saw the midpoint. So that's a half a cup of water going in. And now, and you should have dough. Pulse a couple more times, and you have a pastry dough. Now it's going to be a little sticky. Maybe a little more flour should take care of that. So it's one of those things you got to kind of play with, folks, because if it's too sticky, then you won't be able to roll it out. But with a little luck, you might get that consistency just right. So we're just going to add a little more flour to even it up, so that way we can roll it out, but we still want it nice and smooth. Let's add just that much more flour. Pulse. And then while we're at it, come over here to our duxelle again. And as you can see, more moisture has been removed from our duxelle. And it's shrunk quite significantly. So when you don't see any more water in your skillets, your duxelle is finished. And you see how easy it moves in your skillet. No moisture holding it down. Look at that. Look at how easy it moves. Take it right off. That is all we need for our duxelle. Except for just a little bit of butter. And we're going to just add a tiny bit of butter to this. Let that incorporate in. We're going to stir it in. And this is going to be for flavor. And then we're just going to let the residual heat melt that butter and then soak back into our mushrooms. I'm going to give it another quick stir to make sure that it has been well incorporated in. Okay, let that residual heat kind of soak it in and get all of that butter to kind of absorb back into our mushroom. Now, let's check the consistency of our dough pastry. Still a little sticky. Still a bit sticky there. Add one more half cup of flour. I'll take that much more. Okay, now we're starting to get a little elasticity to it. Just a little. There it is. Now be very careful of the blade when you are going in to remove it from our puff pastry. Get as much of that out of there as possible, because we're going to need a lot of it. Okay, now give me some flour. Then dust this with flour. Dust our station with flour. Oh yes. Oh yes. Perfect. You see any sticky spots, just work that dough where it's stickiest, kind of knead it in, and we're going to kind of work out any of the places that's kind of stickiest the most. And you definitely want to lay down, before you start rolling this out, you want to lay down some more flour. Keep folding it till all the stickiness is gone, and you're left with a beautiful puff pastry. If you need more flour, add that flour down, give it a good pat. And just keep on working it over here. Okay, so until you can feel that there's no more sticky and you've got a nice coating of flour, work with rolling pin, especially with dough, you're going to need more flour. So, right over your station, and just give it a nice dusting of flour on one side, and then with your hand, you're going to go like this, like that, until it's nice and covered with flour. Then you're going to take your puff pastry in the middle. We're going to roll out a rectangular shape this way. Doesn't take much. We're going to need plastic wrap and a little more flour, just a little bit. Just enough to prevent our dough from sticking while chilling. So we're going to take this, we're going to fold it up, a little flour on this side, rub it over, and then fold it up again. A little more flour, rub it over, and now it's ready for plastic wrap. Cover that up, and that's going to be our puff pastry. Right into the refrigerator it goes for 2 hours. Look at that, looks at it. It still has a way to sort of kind of make a good paste out of. It's not 100% dry, but now we got that butter in there to help hold everything together when we make our crust. And it's not going to run all over the place as much as it would have if you didn't add butter. That's why I add butter to this at the very last step, because we don't want any butter mixing in with any water. And we're going to cover this up and chill it for 2 to 3 hours. The sauce is going to be cooking and simmering for a very long time. Check on it periodically, because that sauce is going to thicken up with the bone broth and all the other ingredients, and then we're going to make that reverse roux I told you about, and I'm going to explain that as we go along. And that would be our beurre marinière. Okay, so there's our duxelle. Into the refrigerator it goes, and you're going to be there for 2 to 3 hours. And then we have our puff pastry chilling in the fridge. Whew! And we're not even there yet, folks. And you can see our sauce has now been reduced to about half of what it was. And off the camera, I went ahead and added of the camera, I went ahead and added the butter and the shallots because I forgot to mention that you had to add shallots. So I added 2 more large shallots to this, stirred them in. They're well incorporated now, and that pat of butter that I forgot as well is also in here as well. So we have the sugar, 1 tablespoon of sugar, or 1 teaspoon of sugar rather. We have about 3 bay leaves, about 5 or 6 sprigs of thyme. We have 2 large shallots, finely diced. We have about a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup of red wine, and 4 cups of beef bone broth. Now that's ready to come off the fire. I'm going to let this sit for a little bit. And in a bowl, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a strainer. Put the strainer over the bowl and pour the sauce into the strainer, which gets strained as it goes into the bowl, leaving behind those used herbs and shallots. Okay, until we're left with a straight up sauce. There it is. Now, what we're going to do with that, we're going to let that chill in the refrigerator. You can chill it for anywhere between 1 hour to 2 hours, however long you want it to. Just make sure it's nice and chill. And then before we serve it, we're going to put it back onto the fire, heat it up, and then add our bleu marinier when we heat this up, but after it's been chilling in the refrigerator. Alright, so that's going to chill in there for about 2 hours until it's nice and chill. And then you'll notice that the sauce is still pretty thin, but the whole idea of adding the bleu marinier is to thicken it up. So it's going to be a reverse roux. We're going to add flour to butter, softened butter that's been softened in the microwave. We're going to add flour to that, so it's an equal amount of butter to an equal amount of flour. Mix that together, and you form what is called a bleu marinier, which is a reverse roux. And that's there to help thicken sauces. And the reason why you use a bleu marinier is mainly because if you use straight flour, it's going to clump and it's going to form like little clumps of flour in your sauce. And the butter kind of helps incorporate the flour into your sauce without leaving clumps. So it's an ingenious way to thicken your sauce without using a powder. And you can use this for gravies, you can use it for sauces, you can use it for pretty much anything you want to thicken. So just next time you're in the kitchen, you want to thicken up your sauce, but you don't want to add flour because you're afraid it's going to clump up on you. Well, all you got to do is make a bleu marinier, and your problems are over, pal. You don't have to worry about no clumps in your sauce anymore. So just remember that bleu marinier. Use an equal amount of butter to an equal amount of flour. Mix it together, and you got a bleu marinier, and that's going to incorporate without clumps. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to grab our tenderloin. There it is. So while it's in the sink, I'm going to grab my kitchen shears. And this is going to be a bloody mess. So always do this in the sink. Now with cold water. Cold water. I'm going to rinse. Make sure we get all that excess blood off of there. We don't want a counter full of blood. Okay, now while you're at it too, take some of that fat on the bottom there and just kind of lift it up a bit. There's not going to be much on the bottom. Most of the fat's going to be up here on top. So we're going to need to trim away as much of this fat as possible. That's enough rinsing there. And we're going to need to trim away as much of that fat and just get a good grip, like from down here, and just kind of pull it. And it pulls up very easily. And there is our beautiful tenderloin. And what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of stretch it out, get a good look at our tenderloin, because we are going to need the center cut. And this is going to be called the Chateaubriand. And what that is you want to cut where, before it goes thick on this side, before it goes thin on this side, and that what you're left with will be the center cut. So the Chateaubriand will begin here, and then that gets put to the side, and we'll go all the way until you see it tapering There we go. There's your Chateaubriand. Now we're going to put these in. Let me wash my hands first. And we're just going to drop these in lovely cuts of unused meat and save for another time. There's a number of things you can make with that. So don't get rid of it. Save it. Because it is part of the tenderloin after all. We just can't use it on a Beef Wellington.
Waste not, what not.
That's right. First things first. We're going to need to season our Chateaubriand with salt and pepper. Okay. And we're going to get all sides. Hold it up there, and then find your center again, just like that. Okay, wash my hands again. Turn back on your skillet, and you've noticed I cleaned the skillet out so that we can have a fresh source to work from. Olive oil, just a good splash. Coat. Maybe just a tad extra for good measure, but just enough to coat the bottom of your pan, and just a little tiny bit more, and as you see, that is just fine. Okay, let it sit, let it warm up. Meanwhile, let's admire our tenderloin. Ooh, that's going to be some good tenderloin, isn't it, folks? Look at that beautiful tenderloin. It's going to become Beef Wellington before we know it. Here, we're going to turn this up to mark 7. Get this heated, get this going. Let it come to temperature. Because we need this hot, 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 and I mean hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this door over here behind us too, so that way all the smoke can go wafting out of there. Because this is going to need to be hot. Because what we're going to need to do is we're going to sear this for about a minute on each side, and 30 seconds on the butt ends. So, and for that we need a pair of tongs. Okay, now I hear popping. So when you start to hear popping, you know you're about come to temperature almost. And I could use a cast iron skillet for this. If you want to use a cast iron skillet, but you'll sear it a little less time than just a minute. So if you have a cast iron skillet, sear it for about 45 seconds. You don't want to go the full minute because cast iron heats up hotter than Teflon. So 45 seconds in a cast iron skillet or a minute in a Teflon skillet, and that's what we're working with here. So let's grab our tenderloin now, and we're going to lay it right there. Now watch the time, because in a minute we're going to flip it. 19, flip it. One time. Flip it. Flip it again. Make sure we get all that rest of it. Okay, that one's beautiful. 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 That's what you want right here. This is exactly what you want. So we're going to get the other side done the rest of the way. Doesn't take long. We just want to sear it. We just want to get it in, get it out. Take a look. Okay, now let's do the butt ends. Give it another once over. Make sure that we are where we need to be, and we are. So there, that's the inside part. Find your bottom again. Take your tongs. Take it right off the heat, right onto your cutting board. Now, while it's still hot, don't wait for it to cool down. Do not wait, do not wait, do not wait. Take a silicone brush. I should have had this out already. Take a silicone brush, add some Dijon mustard. And we're going to just brush that over with generous amounts of Dijon. There's a reason why we do this hot, because we want all that Dijon flavor to incorporate right into our meat. So that way when we seal this up and put it in the refrigerator to chill, it's just going to pick up on all those flavors. I'm going to turn this over now and get the bottom part. Remember, handle it with the tongs, because your handling with your phalanges is well over. Also, have your Dijon mustard in a bowl. And that way, you won't contaminate the rest of your Dijon mustard if you do it from the bottle itself. And we want to go generous with our Dijon. Do not skimp on the Dijon.
No, unless you squirt it on top of it from the bottle.
You could, but I prefer to brush it because that gives me, you know, it's a lot faster that way. You cover a lot more ground that way. And that way, it leaves your free hand instead of holding a bottle to hold your tongs and make sure that you have everything covered. Okay, now hit a few of these areas where you may have missed. You really want to slather that on there. Be generous. Be generous. Be like Bob Ross and make some happy Dijon trees and sunsets and horizons and whatever. Okay. Now, for our crepes. We're going to let that sit for a while. And we're going to save these drippings into our sauce. So let's get that saucepan again. And we're going to just retain all of those drippings into that saucepan. And why are we doing that? Because it's got the flavor, the seasonings that is left behind from your beef, and that is going to incorporate into your red wine sauce. Okay, we're going to clean this up again because this is what we're going to use to make our crepes. Okay, so what we're going to need to do on crepes, you need a mixing bowl. I got one right here. We're going to need 1 cup of flour. Oh, and we got the farm fresh eggs. Perfect. Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Farm fresh eggs are a plus in this recipe. Okay, let's make a little divot in the flour. I'm going to make a little well in there, and then we're going to put the egg in that. 1, 2 eggs. Okay, so 2 eggs go in, 1/2 cup of milk, and 1/2 cup of water. So together we should have 1 cup of liquid all together. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to eyeball that. And grab our melted butter now. It's perfectly melted. We got our whisk. I'm going to start whisking our eggs in the middle of our flour. Get those nice and mixed. Going to add our butter. And then we're going to just kind of carry some of that flour right into our mixture. We're going to slowly add our liquids, little at a time, just to get it to thin out. Thin it out. Thin it out. And we're only really going to need maybe 3 crepes. If you make any more than that, so be it. You'll have extra crepes. We only really need 3. A little more milk and water. That's good. Stir. Be careful because now your batter is going to be super thin. And for crepe batter, it needs to be thin. Okay, when you got it thinned out, add the rest. And continue whisking. Until you have a nice thin batter. Give it a final whisk. Beautiful. Now, let's see. This way. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pour an amount into the middle and then just swirl it. Swirl it. Immediately swirl. Till it covers the bottom of your pan. Drop it down. Just kind of keep swirling it a bit. You'll slowly start to see it thicken up. And then when you just take the spatula, when that kind of time comes, I'm going to lift it, flip it, and these are going to be very, very thin. Okay, so I can't swirl anymore. Wait for it to congeal. See how far we're coming along. Being very careful not to rip into the edges of our crepe. Oh, it's ready to flip. It's ready. I'm going to help it along. I do have a kind of a thick spatula, so we're just going to take it and flip it quickly, and there we go. So we got a little tear going on there, but that's okay. It's okay. Crepes are meant to tear. Crepes are delicate. Crepes are supposed to tear. That's why making a crepe is very hard to make if you make a perfect crepe. But once you've made crepes for a while and you get a rhythm going, there's no stopping you in becoming a world-renowned crepe chef. And you can make strawberry crepes, you can make banana crepes, cinnamon crepes, apple cinnamon crepes, you can make berry crepes, crepe Suzettes, crepe with pâté. The possibilities are endless when it comes to crepes. And it really is an easy thing to make if you know how. Okay, look at that. That's not even stuck. That's not even sticking. Beautiful. Okay, let's take out, see how well we're doing on the bottom of this one. Crepe number 2 is almost ready. And it's a little thicker than what I'm used to. Yeah, in fact, it is ready. A little thicker than what I'm used to. That's okay. Sometimes you need that extra little thickness for a little extra insurance. We are waiting for our crepe to be done. I'm going to line up our other crepes over here. So the smaller one is going to go over here. The middle one is going to go here. And then we're going to layer the third one. So let's make that the third one. This will be the first. Well, no, this will be the second one. This will be the middle one. That'll be the middle one. And then the first one, the one that's on the stove now, will come down here. And you want something that'll go all the way around your Beef Wellington. We have our crepes. We're done with our cooking oil. We have our crepes. Houston, we have our crepes. Let's not have any problems, Houston. I'm going to get that into this more into the center. Let me flip this around so that the torn part goes right over there. I have a fold somewhere. Yep, it's right here. Okay. Lovely. Simply lovely. That'll go on the top of that. So a little bit. Okay. That'll be our bridge. There's our prosciutto. Now you can find prosciutto in the deli section of your grocery store. Carefully peel away the prosciutto one at a time. There's going to be paper that separates them, so you just take one prosciutto, remove the paper from it, or in this case it's plastic. Okay, and even if you have to layer it, and even if it comes off, that's okay. I'm going to just layer it. Actually, first, before I do that, let me do this. I'm going to take Wellington, and we're going to kind of gauge. Because what we don't want to cover this completely. No. We want to take about the size of that. Move it over, a little centered. Kind of gauge where that's going to go. And we're going to cut the edges off. Just going to go down straight as possible. Okay. Until you reach the end. Discard that. Do the same thing here. Okay, perfect. What we want is just to cut off any excess. We don't want any excess to get in the way of making this perfection. Okay, that's good. Now we can put the prosciutto on. And we're just going to put it and overlayer it for however many pieces of prosciutto you have. and use the whole package. Just use one package of prosciutto. That's all you need. And use the whole thing. See, look how thin that is. That is almost like paper. Even thinner than paper. Look at that, so thin. You'll have, and you're bound to do this. If I'm bound to break my prosciutto, you're going to be bound to break your prosciutto as well. So don't feel discouraged. It's not going to be perfect because prosciutto is going to be just as delicate as the crepes that you just made. I wanted to do this not only because I love a good beef Wellington, but I wanted to show you how it's done in case you wanted to find out for yourself just how good it is and how much it melts in your mouth when it's all finished. And doing it by this recipe, folks, you are going to be in for something exquisite. Okay, so now for the last two, I'm just going to layer one right here and then one at the very bottom. Okay? Okay, so now we laid out all of our prosciutto. Now it's time to get our duxelle from the refrigerator, which has been nicely chilled. So it took all that time to prepare our beef Wellington, our crepes, our all this stuff, and it was the perfect amount of time to let this chill. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of get it to loosen up a little bit. And take a rubber spatula and kind of loosen it up a bit. Cover the whole thing. Cover it all evenly and spread it evenly. Make sure it's all evenly spread. You should have plenty of duxelle to go over the entire width and length of your crepe bed. It's going to be the fun part. We're going to take our nicely covered beef Wellington and place it right on the very edge of the start of our way to roll up our beef Wellington here. And very carefully, we're going to take our crepe and just roll it. Roll it. Roll it very carefully. Try to use both hands, kind of squeeze as you roll. Tuck and roll, tuck and roll. Crepes may break on you on the way on, but just use both hands and just roll it until you got it all covered. Okay, and then now it's upside down, so I'm going to flip it back. Perfect. This is where we started, and now it's nice and wrapped up. Speaking of wrapping up, we're going to now take our beef Wellington and chill it. And here's what we're going to do with that. Take some plastic. Stuff. Okay, now we can get underneath, support it with both hands, place it in the center of your plastic wrap, and then we're going to take the plastic wrap. Now there needs to be plenty on either side. I'll show you why in a moment. Now take both hands and roll it tightly, tuck and roll in your plastic wrap. Make sure it's tightly rolled. Leave this out to the side, leave that out to the side. We're going to need them. Okay. Okay, now watch. Once it's all covered, take these two ends, squeeze them, and just go like this. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, and roll it. Make it as tight as you can. When you get as tight as you can't go any tighter. Now it's ready for the refrigerator to chill. Maybe hour and a half for that to chill. So that way when we pull it out, roll it in our puff pastry, it shouldn't fall apart on us. So the purpose of chilling it again is to make sure that that doesn't happen. So you want a perfectly rolled beef Wellington. You want it to be perfectly covered in that puff pastry. We still have it in the fridge here. All we got to do is unravel it, roll it back out again, add the egg wash, roll it up in there, and then add the lattice design on the top, and then shove it in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit and cook it for 25 to 30 minutes. 45 if you want it medium, but 25 to 30 is good for medium rare, and that's what we want. We want medium rare because we want that thing to be juicy, tender, red, beautiful on the inside. So I'll see you in about an hour and a half after we've determined whether this is firm enough to take it to the next step, and that is the final step before we cook it, and that's to get it into its nice, big, fluffy, puffy pastry outer shell. So there's going to be 2 shells we're going to do. So we made enough puff pastry to where we can envelop the entire beef Wellington, and then enough left over, hopefully, to add a lattice design. Now let me show you. Lattice design, if you're not familiar with a lattice design is basically like, if you ever seen, like if you've gone to the store and you've gotten an, like a cherry pie or a blueberry pie, and it's got that kind of diamondy kind of design on the top, that's called lattice. And you use a lattice roller in order to get that design. And I'll show you how to do that too. You need one of these. So you need in order to get a good lattice roller, get one that's stainless steel. Okay, don't get the plastic ones. The plastic ones are going to stick to your dough. Stainless steel ones, they'll just roll right off, and you can make your lattice designs flawlessly every time. So invest in one of those. It's a really wonderful thing to have, especially if you know that you do a lot of baking and stuff with dough and pastry and pie. This is definitely an essential. So like I said, we're going to leave that in the fridge, tightly wrapped, and going to let it firm up for about an hour and a half. So this is not going to be a rush job, let me tell you folks. After the hour and a half, we'll kind of come back later, and we're going to see how it is, and we're going to lay out our puff pastry. And when you see that puff pastry being laid down, and you see the egg wash being about ready to be applied, then you know that you're one step closer to enjoying beef Wellington at home. And God, I cannot wait to see that next result, because everything is coming together so well, and it just smells so delightful, and it's going to be so tender, it's going to practically melt in your mouth. So we'll get to that next step right after that. See you in an hour and a half. And we decided to have a full pan of au gratin over here on the side. So we're going to have au gratin with our beef Wellington. And speaking about beef Wellington, we better get to it, because that thing is now chilled in the fridge, and we got to get this thing in the oven because I'm hungry and I want to taste this before I die. Okay? Let's do it. Now we're going to get our pastry out of the fridge, and as you can see, it kind of tore, and when I tried to open it back up again. So I'm going to repair that as best as I can, but first I need to lay down flour. So over your workstation, lay down a generous amount of flour.
Tonight you're a flower child.
Oh yes, peace, man. Okay. Then take your puff pastry when it's unfolded. Kind of let it come back up to room temperature a little bit before you unfold it, because that thing's going to be very frigid, very hard to unfold without tearing. But if it does tear, then just put the ends back together and then just roll them out, and you should have a complete puff pastry again. And there's flour over the top of this now. Move on the rolling pin there. Spread that out a bit. And now we're just going to gently and carefully, after putting together our puzzle of puff pastry, I'm just going to kind of do a little repair job on that. And when you see little cracks and crevices and holes and tears, kind of patch it up with, overlapping it onto each other, and then just rolling it right back into place, and you'll find that you'll have a whole piece of puff pastry again. Alright, so now that we have it all laid out, we're going to go into the fridge, grab our beef Wellington, which is halfway there, and it should be nice and chilled now. And we're going to uncover our beef Wellington carefully now. Find where we've tightened it, kind of loosen it up a bit. Untwist, untwist. Untwist it, untwist it. going to find where that beginning is. And just kind of carefully unroll it and see where that seam is right there. That's going to be the bottom. So carefully, 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 and then remove it from our Beef Wellington, and then right back to starting position right here. Now you might lose a little bit on the sides here, but that's okay. Now we're going to try to center that a little bit better. There we go. And now with the puff pastry, we're going to set that there for the moment, or we're going to reach over here and just close up our flour. I'm going to reach for 2 farm fresh eggs. Best to use farm fresh eggs for this part because of a thicker yolk. And the yolk is going to be beautiful on this next step. We just need the yolk itself. We don't need the egg white. So we're going to try to grab that yolk out of there without the egg white. Okay. And then we're just going to pass that egg yolk from one half of the eggshell to the other half until that egg white is run completely and utterly away. Being careful not to break your yolk. If it does break, that's alright. It's going to break anyway. Once you've gotten rid of as much of that egg white as possible, yep, and now we're starting to lose yolk. That's why we have multiple. Right into the bowl it goes. We might need 3 egg yolks. And now, with a fork, I'm going to beat the egg yolks together. Nice and thick. That's about 2 1/2 worth because we lost about half of that yolk in the sink there. Okay. Once you've whipped together your egg yolk, then it's time to take your silicone brush, give it a little stir, and we're just going to go over the entire puff pastry, not our Wellington, but our puff pastry, and brush it generously with the egg yolk. This egg yolk is going to do 2 things. One, it's going to clean away all of that flour, and 2, it's going to help hold everything together. That's good enough. Now, we only need 1 revolution. We're going to take our puff pastry in 1 piece, not in several. Try to get it in 1 piece. I'm going to try to lift it up. Lift it up. Come on. Okay, lift it up. And we're going to take the puff pastry up and over the top, keeping a firm hand on the top of your Beef Wellington, and then roll it 1 revolution where the ends meet. Stop. Okay. Now, with the ends, we have to make sure that this has enough on the ends to seal. We're just going to give it a pinch. And if there's too much excess, you can cut off as much excess as you want. But just make sure that that's all sealed up. Right. Do the same on this side. Make sure it's completely sealed. You don't want any exposed parts. Pinch to seal that up. And then with this part, you want to tuck it under. Tuck it under. Okay. Where's the knife? Here's the knife. Okay. Now we're going to remove just enough, like that, where all we need to do is just pinch the seam. pinch the seam. Make sure it's completely pinched up. Pinch the seam. And now we're completely sealed in puff pastry. The next thing we're going to do is make sure that we're sealed on the sides. Pinch the sides if you need to. Perfect, perfect, good. Next, we're going to retain some of this left over, and we're going to make something out of that. But first, let us see how much egg yolk we have left, and we're going to brush over the top of this, with the egg yolk. Perfect. Now we're going to need even more egg yolk for the last part before we even bake it. I'm going to take what's left and we're going to knead it. It's got kind of that leftover egg yolk in there, but that's okay. We're just going to knead it right back into the dough. Anything excess, knead it right back in. And while we're doing that, we're going to go after so we're going to knead that. And get underneath and very carefully transport it from there to there. This is a heavy duty thing there. Wow. Alright. Now, let's do some cleanup. Got extra egg yolk all over my surface, so we can just put that right back into the dough. Kind of knead it in place, because why not? Extra ingredients. Yay. It's a bonus. And don't forget the flour, too, because that kind of prevents it from sticking. And that egg yolk is going to make it stick. Some of this too. Kind of got neglected in the corner here. We're going to take the excess puff pastry without the duxelle, without bits of duxelle, that mushroom duxelle got everywhere. And we're going to do what we did before. Where the flour is, make sure you get plenty of flour to help soften it and give it its elasticity. Right over here, okay. That part wasn't pinched properly. That's okay. I'll pinch it properly. There we go. Okay, back to this. Now, what we're going to do with this last piece of pastry dough, we're going to go into a kind of rectangle shape, or as best as we can get to a rectangle shape. And this is the excess pastry dough, and every bit of it gets used. Now, you're going to love this. Now, I'm going to take our lattice roller, and this is what the lattice roller is going to do. Firmly, I'm going to, without taking up the ends, and we're going to roll out a lattice design right across, and then watch this. Oh, it's breaking. That's okay, that's okay. Isn't that pretty? It's like a net. And I'm going to carefully place our lattice over a Beef Wellington to make it look like that. Beautiful. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Beautiful. Okay, a little bit. I messed up on the corner there, but that's alright. See if I can't get it to reset this way more. There's our lattice design. I'm going to tuck that around, tuck this under, tuck this under. And now, with the rest of your egg wash, and you can make more egg wash if you need to, right over the lattice design. But try not to get too much. I'm going to lightly brush over our lattice design. This is where it gets a little intricate because you don't want too much egg wash in the middle of your lattice design. This is just to help give it that golden color. But if there's too much of it, you know, it may kind of tend to make your lattice design a little funny looking. Okay, that should be good enough. Good enough? Good enough. Now, 425. Into the oven it goes. Get it in there quick. Let it bake for 25 minutes. While we're doing that, huh?
It almost didn't fit.
Almost, but that's why we do things carefully. Next step is to reheat our sauce. Our sauce has been chilled, and now the reason why we chill our sauce and not just leave it hot, because of all the grease that shows up on the top of it, and the only way to get to that grease is to chill what you have made. Look at that grease. See that grease there? It's a gelatinous mess up there. So, we're going to take a spoon, and we're just going to skim the top of our sauce and remove all that gucky grease out of there. You could run this through a cheesecloth if you really want to, but this way is so much easier, I think, just to do this, and then you will have lessened a great amount of fats that have developed in this sauce. Around the edges. Around the edges. Once you're satisfied that you got a lot of that fat out of there, and back onto this saucepan it goes. Now remember, we put our drippings from our meat in there, so now when we dump our sauce in, it's going to pick up some of the drippings from the meat. We still have our spoon here, so we're going to give it a good stir. And we're going to bring this to a slow rolling boil. While we're doing that, come over here, and this is the next step in our insanity. And we're going to make a beurre marinier. That's about 2 tablespoons of butter, so I'm using 2 tablespoons of flour. An equal amount of flour to an equal amount of butter will be in our beurre marinier. First, let's get the fat off of my spoon. I want meat fats to get in a spoon. Now, make sure your butter is softened. That way you can make your beurre marinier. And carefully incorporate that flour right into your butter there. And if you need a little extra flour, then feel free to add a little extra flour, but I don't think we need any more than that. And once you get a good motion going, stir the rest of that in. Make sure it's all incorporated into that butter. And this is how you make a reverse roux. This is what you add to sauces and gravies when you don't want lumps. And when you can form a paste like this, then you know you're doing it right. And you just added the right amount of flour to the amount of butter that you have to make a beurre marinier. And it should make about this amount. That's going to be needed to thicken our sauce. So let's go right over to our sauce. Wait for that rolling boil. And our beurre marinier is all done. We're just going to set this aside and wait for that to reach and get a boil. And we're starting to get a boil. Let's bring that down to 6. And we're going to give a little stir, an extra stir to our beurre marinier. And this is going to be used to thicken our sauce. No chilling required on this, just drop it right in. I'm going to use a little bit at a time though to test how thick our sauce is going to be. So we'll just take a spoonful and just drop it right in there a little bit. There it goes. Okay, I'm going to stir that in. Let that butter melt, and it takes the flour right with it. No lumps. And our sauce will become thicker. Well, it really smells good. Okay, so we're going to wait until all of that is melted. And we don't see any more of our beurre marinier. Any more beurre marinier. Let's add some more. And as you can see, no lumps. Those of you that have added straight flour to your sauces and cannot stand trying to get those lumps whisked in, even if you're using a powerful whisk and enough horsepower to really grind the heck out of it, making a beurre marinier is a surefire way to thicken your sauce without getting you lumps. So let's leave this to boil. I'm going to turn this down a little lower, and we'll see you at 25. Let's take a look. Ooh, looks good on the outside. What do you think? Look at that.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at that.
Yeah,
ooh, beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. All right. Let's give a good shot to that reveal there, and that lattice design. Just, I mean, it kind of broke in a couple of places, but you know, that's okay. I'm impressed with the presentation, the way it looks. Looks beautiful. Looks absolutely delectable. Let's dig into this and let's keep our fingers crossed it turns out on the inside as beautiful as it does on the outside. Alright. So taking all the necessary precautions, I'm going to cut it right around here. Or should I say right here. I'll cut it right here. Ooh, that's hot. Okay. Make sure it's cut all the way through.
Oh, is everyone cut all the way through?
Oh, be still my heart. Oh, be still my beating heart. Beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. Beautifully conformed, wrapped, nice and tight. Beautiful. Done. Medium rare. It's medium rare. You want to cut these pieces about an inch thick. We're going to finish it off with a pinch of flaked salt on the top, if it'll stay on the top. Whereas you could spray it down with, or you could brush some butter over it and then put the flakes on top of that way. But that's flake salt. And then I'm going to reach into the refrigerator and get some, I prepared some chive beforehand. So this is fresh chopped chive, and let's get out a plate and let's get a taste test while I'm here. Okay, give it an old taste test. Okay. And now, cut it about an inch thick per serving. That's about an inch thick. So 40 minutes will give you medium rare, 50 for medium, full hour for medium well. But you don't want to go longer than an hour because that's going to burn the outside of your crust. Okay. And then we're going to just take this piece here. Look at that, look at that. Look at that. Ooh, beautiful. Okay. And then the pieces at the end are going to have a little more doneness to it because it's closer to the edge and of course closer to the searing of the butt ends that we had on the pan. Okay, don't fall apart on me. Look at that, beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And now, let's take this over here and add a little bit of red wine sauce drizzle right over the top. A little more shouldn't hurt. There we go. And then add a little bit of chopped chive for color. And there we have Beef Wellington. I'm going to cut off a bit here. Okay, very tender. Get some of the puff pastry, some of the duxelle in there. A little bit too much puff pastry, let me cut that down. Perfect. Oh man. Oh my god. Oh man. Oh man, exquisite. This is good. The flavor from the duxelle really accents this meal well, giving you a perfect blend of flavor with the meat and the puff pastry. It gives it a nice fluffy texture and a nice flaky crispiness. The meat, so tender, so juicy, so delicious. It's amazing. It truly is amazing. And don't just take my word for it. Try it at home. Just give it a try. Just to see how well it turns out. Just follow the directions we did over here in the kitchen here. And hopefully yours turns out as good as this one does. So for cooking with SonicBlu, this is SonicBlu Darkfold. And the next time you see me cooking in here, I don't know what I'm going to make, but I'm pretty sure you're going to love it. I hope you love it. I hope you love it. Hope. Whoa! Did you see that shallot go? That thing flew! That thing flew! Well, I'm not surprised. It's shaped kind of like a football. Set up and try again. All over our beautiful tenderloin. Okay, let's try that again. And this time, let's not Let's make sure it does not fly off the counter. Oh, there's a piece of the thing in there. You're tarnishing my wine, you little devil. Get out of there. Piece of the cork is... That's a piece of the cork. That happens sometimes. Okay, so let's pretend that didn't happen. That's why you gotta be very delicate when getting the cork out of your wine. Okay, here we go. The sauce, I'm sorry about that. The sauce, come on. There it goes. And the farm fresh eggs are gonna be frig gone. Master of dropping things strikes again. And now to pick up this egg that I have so graciously dropped onto the floor because I'm the master of dropping things. Nobody can beat me at dropping things. I hold the record in the whole entire world for dropping things on the floor. And you think you're better than me at dropping things? Think again, Buster. The stuff I drop on here ain't nothing compared to the stuff I drop on a daily basis when you're not watching what I'm doing. Every time I put freight away at work, it has to end up on the floor before it ends up on the shelf. And then sometimes I drop it 2 or 3 times after that. So yes, I am the master of dropping things. I don't like that position. I don't want that title. I don't deserve that title, but I got it. I wish I were less clumsy of a person, trust me. I don't like to be called the master of dropping things. I don't like to have that title. If somebody wants to take it from me, you're welcome to have it. But until that time comes, I am pretty much the undisputed master king of dropping things on the floor. And no, I don't like that position, nor do I like that title, nor do I like being associated with dropping things on the floor. Because we just wasted a perfectly good egg on the floor. See? See? I did not intend to do that, and it just drops on the floor.